Everyone, Joe Waxman here. And in this video, I want to talk about veganism, plant food, and so-called anti-nutrients, and as well as the real reason why people go towards veganism or vegetarianism, and what the purpose is for all that. All right, so let's start there. If you look at spiritual cultures or spiritual societies, they often tend more towards vegetarian or veganism, and spiritual gurus recommend more of a vegetarian diet, less meat-based diet for spiritual understanding. And the reason for this is karmically that a vegetable-based diet will incur less karma, in essence. Because taking animals, although it's necessary in some places like the cold mountains, right? In Tibet, you have Buddhists who eat meat, right? But then in India, you have the largest percentage of vegetarians. 30% are vegetarians, and they eat dairy. They're not vegan, right? There's no vegan societies anywhere, period, right? Because nutritionally, it's deficient, and I'll get into that. But if you go to some monasteries, they might have a vegetarian or even a vegan diet. However, I want to caution, I say that hesitatingly because they're involved in deep spirituality where they are meditating many hours per day, and that biologically has profound influence on the chemistry of the body. You can do amazing alchemical transmutation through deep, intense meditation. So, somebody just referred a link to me about a spiritual master who has been dead for a long time, but his body was mummified, and his bones and brains and tissues were healthy and full, and which goes to show that the spiritual influences the physical. So in other words, that through a very dedicated spiritual life, he was able to transmute his body. And typically when you die, even if your body's mummified, these things deteriorate over time. But this was like a 1,000-year-old monk whose body was preserved to high level of integrity, much more so than we would find in other mummified bodies of the same age. So spirituality alchemically will change it. So like, I don't want you to just be like, oh, these monks are vegan, or some of them are, some of them aren't, right? Like I just said, like Tibetan monks eat meat, right? And there's many varieties, so we can't just stereotype, but there probably are vegan monks and spiritual adepts, but they what I'm trying to say is they compensate by transmutation, alchemical transmutation, right? These are dedicated alchemists in the truest sense of the word. They're transmuting their energies every single day, hours and hours, like basically full time. So your average vegan has like zero, like nothing, like zilch, like penis, like don't even compare. It's arrogant. It's completely arrogant. That's why veganism, if they think about it, like if they're comparing themselves to like monks and spiritual people, like it's just like it's the most egotistical, arrogant thing you can think of, right? But the reason people gravitate towards vegan or vegetarian diets is to burn off more karma, right? Because it's restrictive, it's hard, it's difficult, it's less nutritionally available, bioavailability. Basically, you're going to make yourself much weaker, right? But you are taking, in essence, there is a karmic reduction in not especially eating meat, right? The mammals. If you refrain from eating mammals, right? Then you will, but this is kind of like a fine tuning, or like here it is. Some people have a particular need to be vegetarian or vegan because because their karma. Maybe they've abused animals in their past life, or earlier in this life. Maybe they've taken more than their share. They've just eaten way too much meat, right? Or they've been involved in farming or animal abuse where, they're abusing animals, right? They're farming practices where they're abusing animals, or their business model, like maybe they were making leather goods and they made a lot of money off of leather, right? So karmically, they needed to avoid meat. So there could be all sorts of karmic reasons why people become vegan or vegetarian. And they don't even have to be aware of it. In fact, I think probably most of the times they're not aware of it. But somewhere in their soul level, in their subconscious, they're driven to it. And if you don't believe in karma or past lives or any of that, think of it in the terms of psychology, subconscious, because they have some subconscious guilt stored away in their psyche, that's driving them to be vegan or vegetarian, right? It's the same thing. The subconscious is where we store our karma. That's where we store our hidden karma, right? So that's why people are driven towards things like these nutritionally deficient diets. They're not superior in any way. Yeah, there might be some benefits. I mean, there are benefits to plants. There are many benefits to plants, but not in restricting animal food, right? There are benefits. Surprise, surprise, you can eat lots of plants and include some animal food. It doesn't have to be, I eat plants, therefore I can't eat animal. That's ridiculous. Like, it's stupid. I mean, vegans have a higher concentration of cancer fighting, nutrients in their blood. Just eat the plants, eat the healthy plants. Like, I eat tons of plants, right? But that doesn't mean I have to restrict animal food. That's stupid. They complement each other, in fact. What plants are missing, or what they cause, with the negative things that they cause in our diet, animal food has in abundance, so it complements it, right? The two are complementary. They're yin and yang, and you need to be in balance. And I mean, the same criticism goes for the carnivores. I mean, that's not healthy long term either. It can have some short term benefits. Some people who've have some nutritional deficiencies benefit off of carnivore diet, but I mean, the whole world can't be carnivore. There's just not enough meat. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like, if you have a certain amount of land, you can only grow enough food to feed a certain amount of animals, and if you just eat the animals, then you're not going to have enough food to feed yourself. We need to eat plants and animals, right? So that's the reason people are geared towards veganism, vegetarianism, right? And the obnoxious part is that everyone has this, but I mean, everyone feels superior in what they do, but when vegans act like like they call themselves superheroes, like cruelty free my ass, right? Plants have importance too, like, and if you're just eating plants, there's definitely implications there, and you can certainly be cruel to plants. People think as long as there's no animal food, it's fine, but there's plenty of harmful plant practices too that destroy animals, right? But I'm not gonna get into the details of that. Monoculture crops, destroying the soil. I mean, animal agriculture helps the soil, right, and helps biodiversity. In any case, there's a lot of issues around that, but bottom line, the reason people are driven towards vegan vegetarianism is to resolve some karma, some particular karma, right? But don't think like, oh, karma, I want to reduce my karma, therefore I'll be vegan, and it's okay if I'm nutritionally deficient because I'm reducing karma. It's like fine tuning. It's like, I don't know if you sharpen knives, but if you go to a really fine grit, that's what vegan or vegetarianism is. And that's not to say that these vegans, vegetarians are like, sharpening their knife at a very fine grit. It is to say that they need that medicine in particular for their karmic path. But to say that you know, because vegan vegetarianism will reduce karma. That's like saying you have a really rusty, you know, dull knife and you're going to the extremely fine grit. It's fine detail, right? That you only need if you need it. You know, some people need it because that's their particular karma. But other people need different things, and you can probably do much more with a healthy body and mind and abundance of nutrition, being active in the world with a well-balanced diet karmically than you can by ideologically saying, oh, vegan vegetarian reduces karma, therefore I'm going to be vegan or vegetarian. You may need to be vegan. I mean, especially vegetarian. I mean, I'm kind of against vegan because of the nutritional deficiencies, but if you're really adamant about it, then go for it. However, vegetarian, if you're including some dairy, fine, right? Especially like fish and eggs. Like, you know, if you just want to do like a really basic level, include low-level fish, which means like bait fish, like, you know, sardines, herring, even some salmon, some whitefish, those sort of fish, low level, right? Low on the food chain, not tuna, swordfish, marlin, shark, those. You stick to low-level fish and seafood. I avoid shrimp and bottom feeders. Like, I'll eat some clams and oysters, even though they're bottom feeders because they're variety, but like shrimp are kind of like bugs, you know, and shrimp and lobster and that sort of thing. Even though lobster is pretty delicious, I tend to avoid it. But especially shrimp, I avoid shrimp. They're garbage eaters, right? And they're very annoying little creatures. They're bugs. So I avoid that. But yeah, so the low-level fish, especially like, you know, sardines, herring, salmon, extremely healthy, right? And then some eggs and some dairy, some good quality dairy, which I'll get into. That's all. That's what I would include, and then be very conscious of the vegetables and the foods that you're eating, because there's a lot to know about all that. But so that was the first point. Karmically, that's the real reason for vegan vegetarianism, right? There's no other real good reason, because it's nutritionally, like, there's no good argument for nutritional superiority, none. Like gorillas eat 50 pounds, you know, you'll see like, oh, gorillas are vegan. First of all, they're not vegan. They eat bugs. I hate to break it to you. They eat bugs. You want to be like a gorilla, eat some bugs. You also have to eat 50 pounds of food in a day to get enough nutrition, right? Enough protein synthesis, because vegetarian food, vegan food does not have adequate amounts of all the essential amino acids. It does have all the amino acids, but in lower concentrations than we need. I think it's lysine, especially in beans, and then I can't remember, beans and grains complement each other, right? But you need to eat a lot of them. Therefore, you're taking in more calories. Therefore, you're gaining more weight to get adequate protein. Therefore, protein's muscle synthesis is going to be lower on a vegan diet, especially. And you hear about these vegan bodybuilders, they're taking protein powders. They're 100% taking protein powders with isolated. So that's not really a whole food natural diet, right? It's just kind of a synthetic modern diet that's really just kind of like, you know, they get to say, I'm vegan and I'm a bodybuilder, but that's about it. Like, it's like, otherwise, what's the point? Like, what's the real point? They're not really doing any good, right? You know, maybe they're burning some karma off, but they're really, it's not healthy. It's not healthier. It's not better, and it's not a whole foods natural diet, because they need to rely on protein powders. So it's synthetic. That's the only way. And yeah, gorilla, you need to be eating all day, and then they have these huge bellies. That's these huge intestines that they have. And all vegan animals are like that. They spend half the day eating. They eat like tons and tons and tons of food. So if you're a vegan, you're just like, oh, I'm one of these herbivorous creatures. First of all, you need to eat half the day, and you need to eat shitloads of food. Otherwise, you're not going to get enough protein. Therefore, and then you need to be very active in order to burn it all off. And then you also have to, you can't sit around and be a vegan, because you have to eat grains and carbohydrates, and therefore your blood sugar is going to be way out of balance, which most vegans are lazy, you know, like just sit there doing nothing. So like these vegans are like the least healthy people, right? You have to be physically active. Like you have to literally be physically active. And like a lot, like all day long, in order to burn off the carbs, because those and even so anyway, like the carbs are not healthy in that amount, right? So there's so many strikes against vegans, and I'm going to get into even more why veganism is not healthy, especially as you age. Young people like to be vegan, right? Because they can abuse their body. That's all it is. They're abusing their body, and they get to pretend that they're being super healthy, super conscious, and pseudo spiritual and all that. But as you age, it becomes harder and harder, and protein absorption and synthesis is necessary, not just for muscles, for the skin, for the hair, for the nails, for the bones, for the vitality, for everything. Right? As we get older, it's like harder and harder and harder to do something like be vegan, because even if you know how to do it. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go over a few things that are important to know. Okay. All right. There are the so-called anti-nutrients, right? It's a bad name because they're not anti-nutrients. They're plant chemicals. They're plant defenses. But there's three of them. There's oxalates, there's phytates, and there's lectins. Okay, those three you need to know: oxalates, phytates, and lectins. And it's not that these three things are completely bad. They might have some health benefits, but only in certain amounts. When you're not aware of them and you're just like oblivious to the foods you're eating, you're just like, well, it's vegan, you're not going to do yourself any good. You're probably going to give yourself all sorts of health problems that as you age you're going to have to deal with. And then the problem is that these vegans shout from the rooftops when they're healthy and young and vital about their veganism. As soon as they get some health problems, they're embarrassed and they shut up, and they don't correct. They just keep their mouth shut and just be like, I'm not going to say anything else. Maybe a few of them who have some integrity will say something, but the rest of them, they don't say anything else. They just keep their mouth shut, and then they go and eat some animal food. They don't talk about it. Most of the time, once in a while, they'll come clean and admit that they needed to get off their vegan diet and high horse and blah blah. But most of the time, they're just like, I'm vegan, I'm vegan, I'm vegan. Then they just shut up. Oh, I got major health problems, and now I'm gonna have to course correct and do all these other things, and then it's like, it's horrible. All right. So first thing is oxalates. Oxalic acid. A lot of vegetable foods have oxalates. They bind to calcium and other minerals and create kidney stones, and I think possibly also other like gallbladder stones, mainly kidney stones. See, oxalates come together with calcium and iron to make crystals. Most people use crystals in the body and urine. For some people, they can grow into kidney stones. All right. We have different capacity to neutralize oxalates, and in the past, people were much stronger. Why? Because they were active all day long, and I can't emphasize this enough. People just like don't understand. They think that they can just sit around doing shit, fuck all, like just sitting on the computer and be healthy, and it's bullshit. You can't. You absolutely cannot. Right? You cannot. There's no exceptions. You cannot just sit around, do nothing, and be healthy. Right? So these people, I mean, I'm trying to be nice. Like, I'm trying not to like get all aggro about these things, but it does piss me off, because all these so-called healthy vegan vegetarians, they do nothing, right? A lot of them. And second of all, all the people in the past had to endure incredible hardship, not just with physical activity, but with weather. In the cold weather, cold weather half the time of year, freezing their butt off, no indoor heating, right? They have to chop wood, carry water, light fires, right? And then in the summer, they're sweating. They're in the sauna all the time, sleeping in the sauna, working in the sauna. They're sweating their asses off and freezing their asses off, right? So they're getting all of that all year round. So the ability to neutralize oxalates and phytates and lectins way stronger in the past, way, like a billion times, right? And I just want to, like, for those of you, like, I've gotten some comments that, oh, you know, my father died because of smoking. Bullshit. Like, just go fuck yourself, because you're just a stupid idiot. Reason is, I know this is because he had all kinds of health problems that were not related to smoking. They were related to misunderstanding about all these things that we now know about blood sugar, about oxalates, phytates, lectins in foods that he was ignoring. Okay, and low activity, and just being like, just thinking like he could eat, you know, certain foods and get away with everything. And that's nonsense. Okay, and I'm just not to criticize my father. I love my father dearly, but I have to point these things out, right? So much of his health problems were not related to smoking, and they came because as a direct result of his diet. I know for a fact, because I know that he was hiding all sorts of health problems that he told me about that most people don't know about, right? Leaky gut, autoimmune, thyroid issues, right? Skin problems, kidney problems. Anyway, so all right, so here we're just gonna quickly breeze through the oxalates in foods. So these are low oxalate foods: apples, apricots, avocado, bananas, cherries, cranberries, grapefruit, grapes, lemon, lime juice, melons, nectarines, papayas, peaches, pears, pineapples, oranges, strawberries, tangerines. What's interesting is that when you cross-reference lectins and oxalates and phytates, sometimes you get foods that have both. Sometimes you get foods that are high in one and lower in the other. So you need to know, like this, like especially if you're, you know, vegan, vegetarian, you really need to pay attention to these things. And most of these vegan vegetarians are not. They don't know anything, right? So this is the oxalates. These are the low oxalates. Okay, I'm not going to go through it because it's just going to take too long. But you can just search. You know, this is the Beth Israel Leahy Wealth Health Winchester Hospital low oxalate diet. Okay, let's go into the moderate oxalate foods. So these have some oxalates, but low in general. Okay, blackberries, blueberries, black currants, cherries, fruit cocktail, mangoes, orange peel, prunes, purple plums, veggies, baked beans, carrots, celery, green beans, parsnips, summer squash, tomatoes, turnips. Okay. So moderate oxalate foods, if you don't have a problem with kidney stones and your intestines are good, you know, it's probably okay, right? But it's still good to know about. So white bread, cornbread, cornmeal, white English muffins, saltine or soda crackers, brown rice, vanilla wafers, spaghetti and other noodles, firm tofu, bagels, oatmeal, sardines. I don't think sardines have any oxalates, but maybe. I don't think so. Yeah, chocolate cake. Okay. Macadamia nuts, pistachio nuts, English walnuts, jams or jellies, blah blah. Chocolate drink milk, and some of these things you should avoid for other reasons: sugar, and then other and so-called anti-nutrients, plant chemicals, soy milk, Ovaltine, instant iced tea, fruit juices. All right, foods to avoid: high oxalate food. This is what you want to pay attention to. Dried apricots, also extremely high in sugar as well. Dried fruit, extremely high in sugar. So avoid dried fruit just in general, right? Red currants, figs, kiwi, plums, rhubarb. Okay, bet you didn't know all this, right? Veggies, beans, wax dried. So beans need to be soaked and pressure cooked. Okay, soaked 24 hours and pressure cooked. Canned beans, I think, are generally okay. Beets and beet greens. Now, beets have some other health benefits, but high in oxalates. So make sure if you have them, you don't overconsume them, and you cook them well. Okay, cooking them well will reduce oxalates. Chives. Don't eat a whole bunch of raw chives. You know, collard greens, eggplant, escarole, dark greens of all kinds. Cook your greens. No more green smoothies where it's just all raw greens, you know. Leeks, okra, parsley, no parsley salad, rutabagas, spinach, no spinach salad, right? People think spinach, raw spinach salad is safe. Spinach actually has some of the highest levels of oxalates. And just a quick remedy, just so I know, like, put it in context, in India, they love spinach, and I love spinach too. Don't get me wrong, I love spinach. They boil spinach, drain the water, then they cook spinach well with dairy. Like if you go to an Indian restaurant, you'll know that this is how they have spinach. They'll have it with paneer. It's absolutely delicious, right? And that is because the oxalates are binding with calcium, and then dairy has excess calcium, has abundant calcium, right? So you need to prepare these things this way. And different thing, like, you know, collard greens have way less oxalates than something like spinach, right? Spinach has a lot, Swiss chard has a lot. So like this list is not very detailed, right? Because I researched this stuff before. Like Swiss chard has a lot, watercress has some, parsley has a lot, I think, but we generally don't eat a lot of parsley. Point is, don't eat these things raw. And if you're really concerned, boil it first, then cook it with something like dairy, seaweed, sardines, oil, right? Okay. Amaranth, barley, white corn flour, fried potatoes. I don't know why it says fried potatoes, right? Fruitcake, grits, soy products, sweet potatoes, wheat germ, bran, buckwheat, all bran syrup, graham crackers, pretzels, whole wheat bread. Whole wheat bread that's not sourdough. Sourdough neutralizes a lot of these it's called anti-nutrients, right? Dried beans, again, beans need to be soaked and pressure cooked, ideally with kombu seaweed. Kombu seaweed has tons of not only minerals, but glutamate. Glutamate helps heal the gut. And seaweed also has high levels of iodine, extremely important. Peanut butter, soy burgers, miso. Miso is a fermented food, so I think miso is okay. The fermentation neutralizes a lot of it. Plus, it has tons of glutamic acid, glutamate, right? And all kinds of goodies. Carob, chocolate marmalades. Chocolate has high levels of oxalates. Very good chocolate for antioxidants, but oxalates. So, like, you know, a lot of these things have good qualities and things to watch out for. So you can't overconsume these plant defenses. And just to be pointed out, the reason why plants have these chemicals is to protect themselves from overconsumption by bugs, by humans, by animals, right? They want to live. They do not want to be eaten. Plants are alive. They do not want to be eaten. So when vegans are all like high and mighty on their, you know, horses, like superhero, and they're like, oh, we're cruelty free. Bullshit. You're eating plants who don't want to be eaten, right? There's no such thing. I mean, you can treat plants well, you can treat animals well, but to say that animal life matters and plant life doesn't matter is just ignorant. It's ignorant. It's dumb and it's stupid and it's ignorant. Right. Poppy seeds. I love poppy seeds. All right. So be aware of how much oxalates you're getting. To help with kidney stone, drink plenty of fluids. I don't know about all these, you know, vitamin C has many benefits. Protein has many benefits. Salt has many benefits, but I'd say drink plenty of fluids. And a good remedy for oxalates is lemon water or vinegar water, right? Drink, you know, your apple cider vinegar, your good quality vinegar, lemon water, lemon in food, vinegar in food. Consume plenty of that. Like what I take to work every day is just because it's a little easier than lemon water, is apple cider vinegar water I put a little cayenne. That's my Theramis, right? So I drink that pretty much every day. Helps keep the kidneys clean. Okay, so that's oxalates. It's important to be aware of those. Now, next is lectins. Okay, we have to be aware of these things because they will cause a problem if we're not. They will kill us if we're not aware of. They will give you disease of all kinds. I'm not kidding. I mean, I've witnessed this firsthand. I've observed this in my own body. And the fourth so-called anti-nutrient is going to be carbohydrates, if you want to put it in those terms. But so of all the lectins, gluten has already gone viral. Everyone knows about gluten sensitivity, gluten intolerance, but this is not just for people with celiac disease. The reason people have a hard time with gluten is because it's hard on the digestion. And if you ever consume gluten, especially modern people who are all weak, without exception, every single modern person is a weak person. So just consider yourself, if you're alive now, you are weak. Okay? Just like everyone, including myself. We're all weak because we have to live in the modern world where we're constantly bombarded with chemicals, radiation of all kinds, deteriorated soil, poison rain, poison air, poison everything, right? And then on top of that, our lifestyle is so sedated. So like just sitting around being lazy, having, controlled climate and everything. Everyone's a weak person. Every single person's a weak person. So every single person needs to take remedies to keep their health. Not a single person in this modern diet, in this modern life, can compare themselves to a traditional person. Not a single one, right? Like I'm gonna keep saying that because you hear these arrogant, stupid, ignorant people being like, oh, traditional people live this way. And you're like, these people really do need to get punched in the face. I'm sorry. I keep thinking like, oh, I have to be nice. But like once I get talking about it, I'm like, I keep hearing these things in my head, what these people are saying. I'm just like, my God, you're so dumb. You're just so dumb. You're so arrogant. And you're so full of yourself, and you think like you're like a traditional person when you're absolutely nothing, and you're so delusional too. Like all these people, traditional people, they could just die already. Like kill yourself because you're that ignorant. All right. What are lectins in food? They're large proteins that plants use as toxins to defend themselves against predators. While animals have teeth and claws, plants are not handling such weapons. Plants are rooted, so can't run away. They ward off insects, microorganisms, and other predators. Plants need defenses. They're not food for humans. They're alive for themselves. Understand that. I work in landscaping. I do this every single day. I work with plants. Plants are their own beings. They do not exist for us, right? The amount of delusional thinking, magical thinking in the vegan, vegetarian, spirituality community, is just like out of this world. They're like, oh, plants grow for our benefits. No, they don't. Go fuck yourself. All right. All right. Lectins are also known as sticky proteins. Accordingly, lectins adhere to sialic acid in the nerve endings of the intestines and brain, which inhibits communication and causes brain disorders, leaky gut, and brain fog. You ever had that? I had that. I had that in abundance. I remember like trying to study for like different things, and it was like I couldn't, like my brain wasn't working properly. Leaky gut, brain fog. That's just basically every single vegetarian or macrobiotic or grain-based diet is going to have those. All right. Lectins can cause inflammation and toxic reactions. Although people do not digest lectins, the sticky proteins can often sneak into the bloodstream via the gut, leaky gut. These proteins get into the blood. I don't know if you've ever eaten a food that's high in lectins, but you can actually feel it. I felt it. I've eaten food high in lectins, and just like throughout my body and my blood, I could be like, I'm sensitive enough to know that like, wow, there's something wrong with this. This is not good. Okay. I know they get into the blood. I'm telling you, I've experienced it myself. They do. They facilitate the attachment and binding of viruses and bacteria and help them reach their targets. Once again, nobody alive right now is a traditional person. So you can't you're like, oh, this is what people ate for thousands of years and healthy. Like, you're dumb. Shut up. You're dumb. Some people are more sensitive to lectins. More lectins, for example, in potatoes promote the release of histamine, which is an allergic reaction. All right. Is the seeds, grains, leaves, barks, and shells where lectins are hiding? You may have heard that people use to place tomatoes in front of the pantry to keep insects away. Tomatoes are among the highest food in lectins. Hence, the concentration of lectins in the skins and seeds is exceptionally high. So what traditionally people do with tomatoes, which a lot of people forget, is they peel them and seed them because that's where the lectins are. So if you want to eat tomatoes and peppers, you have to peel them and seed them. And potatoes, peel them, right? These lectins can paralyze smaller insects. When an animal eats a plant, lectins contained in the seeds to help keep the seeds intact as they pass through the digestive tract of the predator. And after the animal has excreted the seeds, it ensures the survival of the plant species. These lectins have a purpose for the plant, not for the humans, for the plant. Plants are very alive. Go read The Secret Life of Plants. I did. Okay. Lectins also bind to carbohydrates, especially complex sugars, polysaccharides. In the body of the predators, after it's eaten, lectins target sugar molecules and attach themselves on the surface of cells, such as fungi, insects, and other animals. Humans are predators to many plants as well. We are predators to plants. Cruelty-free my ass. Since we're significantly larger than insects, lectins are not immediately noticeable, but they are long-term. They will kill you. But they appear over more extended periods. I want to repeat this. They will kill you. This is not something to ignore. If you ignore it, you'll die from it. Okay? And I've seen this. Okay? My father is a good example, but many macrobiotic, many grain eater, grain-based diet, vegan, vegetarians. All right. All right, here's a whole list of things that they can contribute to. I'm not going to read each one, but I've experienced a lot of these or witnessed a lot of these in other people, right? But you can go to this webpage and look for yourself. Mentalfoodchain.com, foods high in lectins. Just do a Google search, or I actually don't use Google. I use Brave as my search engine and browser. But do a search for it. Just read different articles. Do your own research. Right? How do lectins affect gut health? Harmful effect lectins begins on the second brain, the intestines, leaky gut. Lectins cause leaky gut, which means stuff that you don't want in the blood is getting into the blood, causing inflammation, autoimmune disease, all cause disease, right? It's contributing to all diseases. Leaky gut syndrome means that the barrier separating the outside world contents of your gastrointestinal tract from your body leaks. Stuff is getting into your blood that's not supposed to. I repeat, things are getting into your blood that's not supposed to be in your blood, causing all kinds of inflammation and disease and weakness and aging. Bacteria and toxins can enter the bloodstream, causing inflammation and disease. And blood goes everywhere, right? So this can contribute to every single disease, all of them. It's crucial to eliminate the causal holes in the intestinal wall, foods high in lectins. If you ignore this, you will have a leaky gut. Therefore, you will degrade your health slowly or quickly. Above all, it is gluten that can cause a leaky gut, and gluten is in so many foods, and this is not just for celiac disease, it's for everyone. And again, I used to poo-poo this idea, everyone's, intolerant to gluten. Well, yeah, because they changed wheat to make it more abundant, to grow it better, and they tried to do a good thing, but they increased the gluten. In any case, gluten that's not sourdough. Even I wouldn't overconsume sourdough bread, but that's probably your best bet, sourdough bread for gluten. But pasta and most breads, not good. Not only that, a lot of them have glyphosate, which will further, really, if you're just like, and then the blood sugar is, so a lot of it's just poison. Like if you just go and like eat a bagel or bread or pasta that's not organic, I mean, that's just like straight up like a poison. Unfortunately, it is. I mean, I wish it wasn't the case, but it basically is. Can cause considerable damage to the intestinal wall. What makes gluten so dangerous is that it can trigger a process in cells and intestinal wall that destroys the protein holding it together. And I just want to repeat, my father, who was, in many ways, a health expert. I say in many ways, not in all ways, because in some crucial ways, he was kind of ignorant because he was not aware of this. I mean, he lived on a basically bread and pasta diet. A lot of, unfortunately, that's what it came down to. So yeah, it will kill you. Besides gluten, it's mainly wheat germ that damages the intestinal wall because it's not a large protein like other lectins, but a tiny passes through the loophole intestinal walls. All right. Gluten's really bad, but so are lectins. Lectins containing grains make it possible for a wide variety of harmful substances and pathogens to trigger a multitude of diseases. Weight gain. So with grains, it's not only the lectins, it's also the phytates, it's also the oxalic acid, and it's also the carbohydrates. I know a lot of people think grain is the food for man. It's really, it may have been in the past when people were going from nomadic tribal culture, hunter-gatherer, towards civilization. And these were extremely strong people, and everything, like, once again, everything back then was way different, right? Everything was organic. There was no radiation. They were incredibly active. They had to endure the cold and the heat. But nowadays it's so different. Everyone's basically like a little, like wallflower, like pussy, like just weak, pathetic people compared to the way people were before. You can't. There's no bridge there. Like you are just like we need to separate, right? We are modern people living modern lives, and we cannot do what worked in the past, right? Plus the food quality is way reduced, and our health is way reduced, and everything. Like it's just, I can't emphasize enough how different it is. And so when you hear these people comparing themselves to traditional people, it's just like, once again, shut the fuck up. All right. Besides disease, foods high in lectins can trigger weight gain. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't eat grains, but you really need to prepare grains properly and know what's in the grains and which, due to WGA, whole grain bread is extraordinary fattening. So if you need to gain weight, eat grain, eat whole wheat. All right. Unlike gluten, contain the brand, blah, blah, blah. So in some ways, white bread is better than whole wheat bread because of the wheat germ, gluten. In any case, again, sourdough bread is probably the best if you're going to eat bread. And therefore it causes weight gain and insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes and leaky gut, and everything. It causes everything. Inflammation, if you haven't had these health problems yet, don't worry, you will. I mean, you will. Autoimmune disease. My father had autoimmune disease. Yeah, and this is somebody who prided himself in being a teacher's teacher. And again, I love my father. He was very, very smart in many ways and had, tremendous success. in with many things, healing other people's health issues, but he was unaware about this. All right. Let's go into the foods. Let's find the foods. How to reduce or remove. All right. Since the food industry jumped onto the vegan hype trade, the consumption of foods high in lectins has increased enormously. Because straight vegetarians and vegans often build their diets on legumes and nightshades due to limited alternative and lack of protein sources. And yes, there are methods to reduce them. However, it's not easy to destroy lectins. So from tomatoes, eggplants, peppers, goji berries, tomato, you have to peel them, and when they're seeds, seed them. So basically, anything with seeds, any so-called vegetables, which really fruit with seeds, take out the seeds. Also take the peels off. Cucumbers included. You know how they roast peppers in you know, Latin America in the South. They roast peppers, they remove the skins, they remove the seeds. They boil tomatoes, they remove the seeds, they remove the skins. Peel your potatoes. Pressure cooker. A pressure cooker neutralizes lectins in beans, which are essential vegan source of protein. So you can eat beans. Soak and pressure cook with kombu. However, according to this, pressure cook cannot destroy lectins in wheat, rye, barley, and oats. And I can testify to that. I've eaten whole wheat, and I do not recommend it. I've soaked it, I pressure cooked it, and it does not turn out well. According to here, this steam cooking under pressure neutralizes lectins in other grains and pseudograins such as quinoa. So I don't know. You'll have to see about that. Fermentation, fermented soy products, and this reduces or eliminates lectins. Tabasco sauce, fermented. Fermentation in sourdough neutralizes gluten. Natto is fermented, tempeh, miso, shoyu. Okay. Good quality pickles also will help. Soaking and sprouting does not work, according to this article. Sprouting legumes cannot reduce lectins, but pressure cooking can. So I do recommend soaking and pressure cooking with kombu. The kombu, once again, will help neutralize the damage to the intestines. And I mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. Like in the case of Japanese noodles and broth, the broth it's usually very high in glutamic acid and minerals that will heal the gut. Also like pho, bone broth, right? So, or like ramen, they often do bone broth as well, right? So that really helps digest it, or helps heal the gut for any damage from the gluten, from the lectins, and these types of foods. So all beans, including sprouts. So bean sprouts are not a safe food, right? Chickpeas, edamame, green beans, hummus. And it's not to say that these foods don't have other health benefits. They do. But we need to be aware that they can potentially damage the gut, especially if we overdo them, and cause leaky gut. So we need to increase gut healing foods, which includes the glutamate, the bone broth, the miso broth, the kombu shiitake, which both have, that's traditional Japanese, kombu shiitake, high levels of glutamate, glutamic acid, bone broth, fish bone broth, beef bone broth, right? A fermentation, pickles, sauerkraut, kimchi, all that, gut healing foods, right? That's going to counteract a lot of these things. Green beans, because I personally don't want to give up all of these foods, but I do want to be aware of them and know that there are limits and that we need to balance them out with gut healing foods. Right? Chickpeas, edamame, green beans, hummus, legumes, lenses, pea protein, peas, soy protein, soy, structured vegetable protein. I don't eat that anyway. Sugar, peas, tofu. Fruits high in lectins, chilies. You got to roast and peel and seed. Right? Cucumbers, peel and seed. Eggplants, peel and seed. Although it's harder with eggplants, so really don't eat much eggplants. Goji berries, I don't eat goji berries. Melons, don't really eat much melons because of the high sugar content. Peppers, pumpkins. Again, peel and seed and cook well. In Japan, they cook it with kombu, nishime, right? That's a big way of cooking vegetables, nishime, because that, again, the kombu is going to help heal the gut, any damage from lectins. Tomatoes, peel and seed. Zucchini, peel seed. Margarine, milk, conventional milk, right? Now, if you're doing goat or sheep's milk or A2 milk, well, I don't recommend milk in general, but like fermented dairy products, that's going to be much better. Pasta, rice, bread, cookies, flour, cookies, corn, blah, blah, blah. I'm speeding through this. Barley, barley grass, brown rice, buckwheat, bulgur corn, corn products, cornstarch, einkorn, high fructose corn syrup, which is poison for other reasons, kamut, oats, popcorn, quinoa, rice, buckwheat, grass, white basmati rice, white rice, wild rice. And these foods are high, they're all high in carbohydrates, which again is another major issue that cannot be ignored. You will give yourself insulin resistance and weaken your metabolism and all cause mortality, health in general. Pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, chia seeds, peanuts, cashews. I used to binge on peanuts, not anymore. And pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds, not anymore. Even if they're roasted, I mean, that'll reduce it somewhat, but not enough. Oils high in lectins, canola, corn, grapes, seed, peanuts, safflower, soy, sunflower, partially hydrogenated. So Northern European cows give milk that contains milk protein casein A1 instead of casein A2. And this casein A1 is converted into lectin-like protein called beta-casomorphin during digestion. So people are lactose intolerant. I don't know that lactose intolerant people will definitely be able to handle A2 protein, but it's definitely going to be much more easy to digest. So I recommend A2 milk, fermented dairy. If you're going to eat dairy, A2 milk, or sheep or goat, or some other like like they have like yak, or I mean, that's not very common in the West, but yak butter, buffalo butter, things like that. Beta-casomorphin is considered one of the primary causes of type 1 diabetes. Basically, don't drink regular milk. And be very cautious of regular dairy. That's not A2, sheep, goat, or some other animal, right? Cottage cheese, ice cream, ricotta, yogurt, including Greek, yogurt, ice cream. Okay. Lectin-free vegetables, all seaweed, artichokes, arugula, asparagus, basil, beet, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, carrots, cauliflower, celery, chicory. But what's funny is that some of these foods are have oxalates, right? But they don't have lectins. So then you have to know, you have to be aware. Like you can't do this being all ignorant. If you want to be ignorant, then you shouldn't even try to be anywhere close to vegetarian, or definitely not vegan. I mean, almost no one should be vegan anyway, but like you have to be a scientist if you want to be a vegan, because you're going to have to know every detail about every single food that you put in your body, because otherwise you're just going to die young and be extremely unhealthy. All right. So that's a whole list of lectin-free foods and fruits, and you should study these things yourself. Don't rely on me. Lectin-free nuts and seeds. lectin-free oils, lectin-free fish, all fish is lectin-free, lectin-free meat, all meat, lectin-free dairy, the A2 milk, goat, sheep, buffalo, Southern European cows, right? France, Italy, Switzerland, butter and cheese, buffalo. So good quality dairy, I actually do consume and do recommend. Even the spiritual Hindus eat dairy. They'll eat good quality dairy, and they need it for their health, right? These are people who are not consumed with some modern ridiculous ideology. They are in it for generations for health, right? You know, long-lasting health for generations. Now, the third so-called anti-nutrient to be concerned about, to be aware of, phytates. Now, no doubt in small amounts, oxalates and lectins may have some health benefits. Phytates particularly seem to have some health benefits in small amounts, but don't be fooled. You know, some people are like, love to be all or nothing. They love to be black and white. They love to say, oh, phytates are so bad, I'll avoid all phytates. Other ones are like, no, phytates are really great. They chelate toxic heavy metals. They act as a antioxidant and anti-cancer. Those things are true, but they can be both true at the same time, right? So we have to understand too much oxalate, too much phytates are very bad. Some phytates are good. Right? Okay. They bind to minerals. They also bind with heavy metals, like I said, so they can detox the body. Especially high in fiber and whole grain foods. It also an antioxidant and may help fight some cancers. All right, grains. All grains, beans, nuts, and seeds have phytates. Potatoes. And basically the way to lower phytates is soaking and cooking, well cooking. So remember, it doesn't reduce all the so-called anti-nutrients, but it will reduce the phytates. So again, somebody was I was living with these people, he was vegan, and he was like, oh, let's make some raw chickpea hummus. And I was like, no, you're not, that's not good. And he did. He was like, oh, it's great. And I'm like, no, thanks. I'm not, none for me. He just basically soaked the chickpeas and blended them with tahini. Anyway, high lectins, high oxalates, high phytates. And then one time I was eating raw almonds. I don't know why. I was like, oh, let's try raw almonds. And then my teeth were bleeding and hurting like really badly, right? My teeth don't bleed. My teeth and gums don't. My teeth don't bleed. Teeth don't bleed, but my gums don't bleed anymore, right? Since I became really aware of all the different foods and added more good quality animal food in my diet, my gums are healthy. That's a sure sign of mineral, good mineral absorption, right? If your gums and teeth are not bleeding. Well, again, teeth don't bleed, but gums. If your gums are not bleeding, that's a great sign that you're on the right track. It's not everything, but it is. But if your gums are bleeding, that's a sure sign that you are minerally deficient, right? In any case, almond skins are particularly high in phytates. They're the very highest in phytates, right? Out of any food that I've found. So be wary of almonds. Almonds are not a great food. Like, you need to soak them and peel them in order for them to be good. So unless you're going to bother to do that, just avoid almonds. Avoid almond butter. Avoid almond milk. Okay, almonds are not a great food. Best nuts are walnuts and pistachios. Macadamia nuts too. Macadamia nuts are expensive, but anyway. Walnuts, pistachios, 3 Brazil nuts a day, no more, because they have, I don't know, probably lectins and phytates, but they have very high levels of selenium, which you need. So that's why I include that. But then you need some good quality dairy and things like sardines and salmon for, the nutrients, and seaweed and oil. All right. Phytate is highest in bran-based products, whole wheat flour, corn, oat, rice, processed white flours, according to the book Food Phytates. Beans and nuts contain phytates. All beans, all nuts, all seeds have high levels of phytates, right? So once again, animal food and vegetable food complement each other. Potatoes, even though cooking typically eliminates some phytates, that's not true in potatoes. Whether potatoes are baked, boiled, microwaved, or fried, they retain virtually all their phytates. So potatoes have phytates and lectins and oxalic acid, I believe. Yeah, it's mostly in the skin, but it's still in the starch and starch, carbohydrates. They're high in all of it, right? So potatoes are not really a health food in any way, shape, or form. All right. So soaking followed by cooking can reduce phytates by 50%. So it seems like with grains, the lectins are not reduced by that, but the phytates are, and pressure cooked beans seem to be safe. So anyway, I know it's a lot to take in, but this idea that vegetables are safe and anything that's plant-based is safe and healthy, and it's wrong. It's just straight up wrong, because you have to, first of all, like, you know, a vegan vegetarian diet is going to be much higher in carbohydrates, therefore leading to insulin sensitivity, less protein, weight gain, and I'm going to stop sharing. And I mean, I did this for 40 some years, and so my metabolic health is not great. And one of the ways you can tell about metabolic health, it's not the only way you can tell, and there's some obvious contraindications to this, sometimes, but like the shape of the face, right? Like I'm pretty thin. If you saw me without a shirt, like you'd be like, wow. But like I know my cellular health is not great, my metabolic health is not great because of years of overconsumption of carbohydrates and anti-nutrients, just because I didn't know any better, right? And so I have a way to go to bring my cellular metabolism back into, you know, optimal health. But face shape, you know, swollen face, plus the years of drinking beer, which has carbohydrates and increases uric acid, another thing to be concerned about. That is also detrimental. Smoking, years of smoking, right? So I thought I was eating healthy, but really I wasn't. And most vegans, vegetarians, macrobiotic, grain-based diets are not eating all that healthy. And that's not to say that carnivore is the way to go. No. For short term, for some people, yeah, to heal the gut, because they've damaged themselves so badly there you can't, and there might be other ways, but that's probably an easy fix. But long term, no. Really, long term, we need a balance between animal and vegetable, and they complement each other. This is yin and yang, right? It's man woman. It's opposite but complementary. You know, that's why, you know, you take a high food like spinach, very high in oxalic acid. You boil it, drain the water, cook it again well cooked with dairy. That's how you balance it. Animal vegetable cooking, right? So these raw green smoothies, unless you're really, really careful and know what you're doing, probably not all that great. You're probably getting high levels of oxalates and lectins, which are depleting minerals. You know, a lot of these people, like, they're old, they have no teeth anyway, so it doesn't even matter. But like, they don't care. They're just like pretending to be spiritual, and you know, they're just not really paying attention, and they feel like removed from the world and isolated. And I felt that way too. I'm speaking from experience, right? But you know, it's like you can only go so far before, like, you really, you know, people need to survive in the world. We're not islands, you know. You need to integrate, you need to balance yourself. We don't live on a, you know, vegan world where everyone has the same vibration and stuff like that. We need to integrate, and therefore we need to harmonize, and that's just part of it. Like also the health thing, again, right? So I don't want to make this any longer than it is, but I mean, there's just ample reasons to include animal food in your diet and to be very aware of the um um I don't want to call them anti-nutrient, but there are plant chemicals. So I guess there's 4 of them that I'm really, 5 main things that I would point out, right? Lectins, oxalates, phytates. Carbohydrates are not a health food. Carbohydrates are necessary for running fast. And most of these grain eaters never ran a step in their life. Or if they did, it was like when they were 20, right? But for high intensity athletes, yes, carbohydrates can help, But again, if you're low activity, you also need to be low carb. Like that's just period, like just low activity, low carb. Okay. And the 5th thing is protein, right? If you're vegan, you're not getting good protein unless you're doing grain and bean combinations, and therefore you can't do low carb. Therefore, it's just like you have to be, if you're going to be a vegan, therefore you have to be very physically active, right? But still, it's like and then you have to eat shitloads of food. Like you have to basically eat 50 pounds. You have to be a gorilla, basically. And then even then you have to eat bugs. And then you have to eat dirt too, because because you're not getting the proper amount of, like, dirt contains so many soil-based microbes for gut biodiversity, for digestion, to heal your gut. I mean, it's just like there's so many things working against you in veganism, especially, but also like vegetarian, unless you're eating really good quality, like the more restrictive you are, the more you have to pay attention, the more you have to know what you're doing. So if you want to be on a restrictive diet, be a scientist. Like really do a lot of research, like every single day, because we're finding out new things all the time. And I'm basically a scientist. I'm not a scientist, but I do tons and tons of research, right? Especially as I get older, especially because as we get older, we need to. And, veganism is worse for old people because they need more protein. And you're just not getting adequate protein on a vegan diet. You're not, even if you're combining, because most people just will not be able to eat the amount of food, and then they're getting too many calories and they can't burn it off, right? And there's just so much working against you, so much. It's just not healthy. It's just like plain and simple, not healthy, right? And so we need to learn more and better, and people who think they're experts are not, and people think they're like they've got it all figured out don't. We need to be learning, we need to be paying attention, we need to stay on the cutting edge of research and science in order to understand. And that doesn't mean abandon your ideological way of thinking, whether it's yin and yang or traditional Ayurvedic or whatever it is. Incorporate modern science and information, and don't be stubborn, right? Do what's best for this animal, because if you are ruining your own health because you're cruelty free, you're actually creating much more karma for yourself, because you're harming your own body, which is, this body was given to you to be a good steward of the health of, and to have a long healthy life. And if you're ruining your health because you're cruelty free, which is, you're not cruelty free, I mean, it's just stupid, it's just ignorant for the most part, right? So I just want to challenge all the vegans out there. You're not doing anyone any good, because if you're not healthy, then you're being cruel to yourself. And this is the primary responsibility. You know, you're not a martyr. That's not a healthy mentality. Oh, I'm sacrificing my health, because you're not. A lot of these animals benefit from their arrangement. They're better off because they would die of starvation in the wild, or die of, you know, being eaten by an animal. In any case, guys, that's enough for now. There's just so much, you know, reasons to not be vegan, and so many reasons to be omnivorous, and so many reasons to pay attention to science and technology and modern research. So do all the above, be aware of foods, do your own research, learn about all the foods, all of them, animal, vegetable, mineral, right? Learn about everything. So that's it for now, and I will see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.